Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not. It's a difficult question to answer, isn't it? How's it going?
Yeah,
Um,
well, going well, all things considered.
considered. Um, how'd you enjoy Hippy Dippy last time you were on it?
Oh, it was cool. I think it was a lot of fun. I still don't know if that conspiracy castle dude is a troll or not.
Is if he's a troll or not?
Yeah, yeah, I have
It,
no idea.
it's very hard to tell, but I think those are the best ones. Is when you don't know for sure.
Yeah, that's that. I can see that.
So I've brought you in here today because you have made a lot of videos about the issue in Ukraine, and you seem to be extremely passionate about it. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about is something you actually made a post about recently in the community tab of your account, which was the quote unquote Russian blitzkrieg and the possible failure of the Russian blitzkrieg as we're getting more and more information about how they basically wanted to I don't know a better word for it, but cut the head off the snake in like a single to maybe two
Yeah,
nights,
exactly.
and it's not working. It did not work. In fact, we're going to be covering this later in the show, but we're seeming to getting reports that the special forces that were at the airport near Kiev, the airport is now back in control of the Ukrainian government, is the reports that I'm reading, after they shelled the airport and were able to take it back from the airborne troops, marking probably one of the earliest and most significant Ukrainian military victories so far. So what do you think about the and top Ukrainian generals are saying that this blitzkrieg has failed. What do you make of it?
Oh yes. So first things first. That victory against the fucking paratroopers is huge. Like those are supposed to be the elites, if I understand it correctly, or like some like very high-ranking
Yes.
professional troops within Russia. So to defeat those people, oof, that's already really good. So regarding the with regards
Yeah.
to the
To
to the
be
whole
specifically, their VDV and SSO unit.
hmm, right. Uh, and with regards to the Blitzkrieg attempt, well, okay, so let's go through real quick, step by step. So what happened today, just to sum up. So in the morning today, at around like 3, 4, 5 a.m. Ukrainian time, Russia started just like pounding the whole, pretty much the entire country, mostly airfields, air defense complexes, etc., military posts with rockets, like long-range rockets from Russia and Belarus, and then like Grad missile launchers, basically everything they had, just like fucking unloading on Ukraine, which was then followed up by air attacks, similarly on military units. After which point a general invasion happened, and it happened during like after daybreak, which is going to be relevant later on. So make a note there. So the main theaters of the battle were the north of Kiev,
Yep.
and then of course the northeast around Sumy and Chernihiv, and also Kharkiv. And the east was, of course, well, that was Kharkiv and the line of demarcation.
If I'm
And
correct, Kharkiv has, I believe, the second largest city in Ukraine. Is that correct?
exactly, it's a pretty big city, yes. And that was actually the first theater where the Russian army got just like held the fuck up. Like seriously, they couldn't advance and they got bogged down as everyone else was advancing. So to sum up, like so we have the most important theaters are the Kiev theater, the Sumy, Kharkiv, um, and of course the Donbass line of demarcation and the area around Crimea. This is Kherson for all intents and purposes. In pretty much all theaters, except maybe for the south, the Russian army has been stalled by the Ukrainians. Like they just like pretty much staggered.
When you say the south, that does not include Odessa, though, because
No, 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 no,
the
no, no.
Ukrainian military has stated that they have been repelling attempts by the Russians to take Odessa.
Yes, yes, exactly. So currently, the land forces have not are nowhere near Odessa. So to get to Odessa, they need to first take Kherson, which is a decent sized city. After which they take Mykolaiv, and then they have to cross this big sort of essentially river, no, not delta, but like a big sort of um, very wide river section, and then they have to pass a few more rivers, and then they make it to Odessa, which is actually pretty well defended from the ground. But then again, Russia has a bunch of landing ships which they haven't used yet. So question is, what will happen there? But Odessa will become just like once they make it to Odessa, we can expect urban battles at which Ukrainians are actually very good, and I'm going to expand on that. So the Blitzkrieg idea. The plan was apparently, as we are.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to say quickly about the south. You were talking about Kherson as one of the cities in the south that they would need to take. About an hour ago, the Joint Staff said that there are clashes near the city. They took a bridge over to the city. Basically, there's fighting near the city at this point. That they've
Yes,
made
yes.
it
So
up to it.
right. Right. So now, right now, there's an urban battle, like an impending urban battle in Kherson. Like the Russians are, what they're trying to do is that they're basically trying to sort of encircle the city, like kind of bypass it. What Putin is attempting is this like highly mobile type of fighting of like the troops just like roll through everywhere, just like skip the difficult parts and then try to advance towards objectives. But this is not really working because they're getting basically harassed along the way, and they get bogged down, as we've seen.
Yes.
Yes. So right now, Odessa is not in danger, but even if Russians would make it to Odessa, I mean, it's like I think it's like a million inhabitant city.
I gotta hear that. I gotta say that, and thank you for the gifts. So we're trying to disable the sound effects, but it just isn't working at the moment. We'll fix that, chat. But I wanted to bring up about Odessa. Odessa is interesting because everybody said, at least when it came to military analysts, that the Russians, if they were to do what they are doing now, which seems to be a full-blown, and it's not really even debatable at this point, they intend to remove the government in Kiev. They intend either a war of complete regime change or just a complete war with Ukraine, a complete offensive. But part of that was the idea that there'd be amphibian landings in Odessa. And so far, there hasn't really been any evidence of large-scale success when it comes to that regard. And they did, and there was reports of it leading up to this point, that there was amphibious equipment in the area for them to do this type of thing. And so it's really interesting that there doesn't seem to be any like really reports of success there. The only areas where we've really seen large-scale Russian success has been their bombing campaign, which has definitely hit a lot of defensive points, and what we've talked about so far in the south.
Yes. So, but the thing about the bombing campaigns was, and then with this we go back to the Blitzkrieg idea. So the whole Blitzkrieg plan was that okay, we're gonna just like fucking cover Ukraine with missile fire and then air forces, just like end every single sort of major military infrastructure in Ukraine, and soften up the army, break their morale. And just like essentially sow panic among the population because hey, fuck, your city is getting missile struck, right? And then the plan was to, after there's panic, the Ukrainian forces are in disarray, half their shit is gone in smoke. Then the ground troops roll in, supported with like heavy helicopter and air support, as in like fighter jet and support, and then. It's just going to be, they encircle Kiev, they break through all the defenses, and then they force a surrender from Kiev. This preferably within a day or two. This did not happen though. So the first problem that the Russians encountered was in Kharkiv, which was one of their main battle, if not the main direction of advancement. In Kharkiv, the Ukrainians actually BTFO'd them pretty hard. Because Kharkiv is really close to the border, and of course, what the Ukrainian army is very good at right now, because of the nature of this whole of this conflict, is that they are very good at these battles at the edges of urban areas, basically, where there's ample cover. Russian armor is not that effective. Plus, there's a bunch of locals enlisted in the local territorial defenses who know the area, etc. Plus. They have very high morale, Ukrainians. In multiple sources confirm that the Ukrainians are just like, yeah, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna just do it, and let's fucking go, etc. And the Russian morale, on the other hand, is very low. because I mean, because Russia is the
I mean,
aggressor here.
we've seen the protests. I mean, I gotta say the protests are much bigger than I actually expected. We're gonna cover this later in the stream, but there are Russian celebrities speaking out against the invasion. There's like a Russian like equivalent of Stephen Colbert that has like spoke out against the invasion. We're seeing protests on the street, of course.
Oh
The
yes,
Russian
yes.
police has reacted how the Russian police usually reacts to these types of situations, but the Russian people are not exactly excited about the prospect of fighting a nation that they feel very paternal. I mean, I guess a close relationship with.
Oh yes, yes. So this is this whole fraternal Ukraine. It's actually Ukraine is actually very like it's almost Russian, rhetoric. Like this coming back and biting Putin in the ass because
True.
okay. Yeah, so because on one hand you say, oh, Ukraine is there are our close brothers. There's almost no difference, and then poof, we attack them. Oops. So it's kind of a hard sell for society. But yeah, the problem with Russian troops right now is that their
By the
morale.
way, one moment. Chat, we
Yes.
have actually the stream of the city in question we were talking about on stream right now. Continue. I'm sorry.
Of course, of course. So basically, the problem is that the Russians are at this point pretty demoralized because they're attacking fucking Ukraine, and the thing is, especially in eastern Ukraine, especially in the Kharkiv area, lots of Russians have Ukrainian relatives who might live there, or there's friends and families across the border, and now they're attacking. So this is by no means a good situation for them. The other problem is that a lot of the troops that the Ukrainians have captured so far, they had like 200 POVs or something, Russian POVs. Most of them they captured, they say, are just like kids in their early 20s, and not like the 35-year-old grizzled veterans or something. They did capture some officers, but most of them seem to be just like young people who are just like, here's a rifle, go. And there have been reports of Russian conscripts, so basically just like kids, teenagers, early 20 people in their early 20s in their military service. Sometimes it's only like just a few months of training. They take them to the border as conscripts, and then they give them a rifle and they say, okay, you know what? Now you're temporarily a contract soldier. Go off and fight in Ukraine. And they're like, okay. So and the problem is like the reason why the Russian morale is so low is, as I said, because fraternal nation. Also, many of the troops are just like not experienced, and this is like as a conscript, this might be your first conflict ever that
Yeah,
you take
actual. I
part
mean,
in.
if we think about like the invasion of Georgia, that's like what 2008. And unless they were actually troops involved in military operations in Donbass up until this point, which we all know that the Russian military has been active in the Donbass region, even if the Russians are lying about it. But that's only a small amount of troops, and many of them mercenaries. We're talking about 150,000 troops now. Many of them still outside the border, have yet to be moved in, which is something I'm very concerned about. But many of these troops have not really seen active warfare. This will be their first taste of it, and it's with the people that Putin just gushed about that they're basically Russians.
Oh yes, yes, and exactly. And the other problem is that the Ukrainian resistance was much stronger than they expected. So what they were planning on was that, as I said, just swoop in, just meet a demoralized, sort of disorganized. Sort of ragtag, half bombed to shit army, and then just like steamroll them, and then whoopsie daisy, we took over. Well, then time for you to surrender. But this didn't really happen. The first theater where they fucked up was Kharkiv, where the Ukrainians just like stopped them in outskirts of the city. Currently, there is fighting going on around Kharkiv. Many people are sleeping in a subway and all that. So it's that kind of situation. But the thing is, like, morale is very low among Russians, and very high among Ukrainians, because for them it's like, yeah, fuck that dude, our finest hour, let's go.
This is I remember I heard one Ukrainian say something along the lines of this is our great patriotic war. This is our moment to defend
exactly.
like our independence after it has been stomped on time and time again by multiple empires, including the Russian Empire.
Oh, exactly. And then what does your ordinary Russian troop fight for, right? Like, I don't know.
I mean, like, I guess for them, like the narrative is they need to stop the genocide in Donbass, but if you listen to the the General Secretary of the United Nations, he will tell you, and because he's not lying, that there's not really a genocide going on in Donbass. There are issues in Donbass. I would most readily point to water security issues ever since the conflict started. But those issues are also in large part created by the Russian military through sponsoring the conflict, and it's not a genocide.
Yes, yes. Well, exactly. Plus those your ideas of we have to stop the genocide in the Donbass. Those ideas will change pretty quickly once like you get fired upon by the Ukrainian military. Like as a 20-year-old, who has never seen conflict before. So Russians planned this blitzkrieg, as I said, and oops, it didn't work. Proof for this is that 12 hours after the start of the invasion, Putin actually offered Zelensky to talk. So he said, "Okay, look, I'm offering you negotiations. If Ukraine sort of accepts a neutral status, as I said before, then it's all good." Or like something to that effect. So basically, like offering the potential of negotiations. Now, the thing is, if you are winning.
Wait, one second. Can I comment on one more thing? Because somebody brought it up in chat and I do want to bring it up. What about this motivation? Now, I'm sure that every Russian soldier marching in Ukraine is ready to fight the Nazi menace that has been talked about by Putin, that he needs to denazify Ukraine. Personally, I would like to see the denazification of the Wagner Group. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely! Like these Russian paramilitaries and separatists, even the army, are full of these like far right weirdos. Because Putin is a far right leader, who just did a speech, but before the invasion, saying essentially blood and soil, ethnic similarities and so on. Plus, this whole Ukraine project for him is just rebuilding the past mythical greatness of the Russian Empire, which is also a distinctly it's a distinctly right-leaning thing to do, far right even. So of course, and Putin is of course he's an oligarch, kleptocrat, etc. But his politics are far right ethno-nationalism, basically. So no one should wonder why in this Russian environment the far right is so integrated into why the far right. So much of the far right orbits around the Russian.
I also want to bring up the fact that if you look at polling data from the Pew Research Center, in some countries in Central and Eastern Europe, roughly 1 in 5 adults or more say they would not accept Jews as fellow citizens. The percentage of Ukrainians that would not accept Jews as fellow citizens is 5%, which is on the low end for Eastern Europe. Russia, it's 14%. So again, if we're talking about the denazification of Europe, I think the Russians should probably concentrate more on, maybe the home territory.
And they should invade Romania.
Romania or Lithuania.
Yeah, exactly. So in Ukraine, there is, of course, so the more east you go, the poorer the countries get. Of course, the more reactionary they get. This is socioeconomics. So, however, for example, in Ukraine, attitude towards gay people went from 12% or 15% positive in 2010 to 56% positive just a half a decade later. So things are improving.
Are you telling me that the Russian military is not invading to liberate queer people around the globe?
I don't think so. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, that's disappointing.
I doubt it. Yeah, but the thing is, though, Putin intended this very much to be a short offensive, which his offer to negotiate after 12 hours really tells you everything you need to know. So Putin is is having a problem, sort of. The Ukrainians were supposed to go down kind of quietly after the missile strike, but this is not happening. There's active resistance, and with each passing hour, there's more Russian soldiers and more equipment is getting annihilated within Ukraine, which contributes to domestic instability, as we're seeing more and more with the protests inside Russia, and even prominent Russians whom you would not expect to speak out against this are doing so.
No.
So
Not
as
only
time
not
goes
only
on,
like celebrities, but there's many oligarchs in Russia, many of Putin's buddies, who are going to feel the pain of the sanctions. I mean, we're seeing countries that we didn't even expect to jump on board, like South Korea, jumping on board of piling on these sanctions. We're seeing Boris Johnson trying to use this to maybe pivot away from his own scandal and going harder than we expected. We're seeing a lot of nations get united on this issue, and we're seeing the Russian stock market react as assets are frozen around the globe, and a lot of financial tools that America had at its disposal are used right now, and the squeeze is being felt by his buddies.
then that's the other thing. So not only are you sending young people to die in a battle against the fraternal people supposedly, but you're also getting poorer, and the ruling class is also feeling it. So so far it's kind of a lose-lose for Putin. So the only way he can get out of this with a win, if he actually manages to take over Ukraine. Um, but the thing is, this window is actually closing pretty quickly. So for him to invade Ukraine could work theoretically if we consider it in a vacuum. Like if the Russian army keeps attacking Ukraine long enough, then maybe. I stress maybe they could take over the country. I'm saying maybe because if you think about how the U.S. Army did with for example, Afghanistan. Um, the U.S. Army had to pull out in the end and sustain massive losses. It was a travesty, and that was the U.S. Army, right, against the Taliban. It's just like a bunch of it's like a ragtag militia, loose formations, with like very low quality weapons. And we're talking about the Ukrainian army and the Russian army, so the difference is not that gigantic. And plus, the Ukrainians are starting from a much better position. So I don't think there's a way for Russia forward here. They might do a lot of damage, or at least if there might be a way for Russia if there's some variable that I fail to consider.
Okay.
Otherwise,
One moment. I wanted to play some.
Yes,
You were
yes.
talking about earlier about people in Kharkiv sleeping in the subway as violence is occurring above, and people are resisting against the Russian imperialists. I just wanted to play some footage on stream quickly of those people in Kharkiv.
it's Metro 2022.
God, I gotta say, Metro games, amazing series of games. Sadly, I'll have to boycott them now. But you were saying, I didn't mean to stop you.
Yeah, no worries. But yes, yeah, right. So metros are being used now for for improvised shelters for people, which is fair enough. Right. So currently, Putin's problem is that he needs time to sort of finish the job, but time is his most precious asset right now. So that's hence the blitzkrieg. The more time the more time he spends in Ukraine, I suppose, the more unstable things get in inside Russia. Not to mention, the Russian elite support of Putin should not be taken as granted. Sure, Putin has a sort of an iron grip around the country, but that iron grip is still made up of different like under him there are different people whom he sort of unites for his own goals. Basically, strongmen who I've heard a very good analogy for this, basically strongmen who carry each other's corpses to his feet while trampling on each other, to Putin's feet, that is. So Putin kind of maintains this top-down structure with like the oligarchs and the strongmen below him.
Actually, sorry, I need to apologize. Metro was actually developed in a company founded in Ukraine, so I will just play them more. Sorry, continue.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so basically this top-down Russian system should not be taken as much for granted as people might. It is possible that the elite might rebel against Putin at some point, with the sanctions, with the dead soldiers, and just with the low morale. It is definitely a risk. Or maybe it won't be just like a genuine rebellion. Maybe it will just be some opportunistic whoever who just goes, hey, I could be the new Putin, and then just exploits the tensions inside Russia. So Putin is really in trouble on this front. I would say.
I just wanted to say quickly that about an hour ago, the Ministry of Health of Ukraine reported that 57 Ukrainians have been killed and another 169 were injured so far in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is also at the same time that they say that they've actually, I saw something like from somewhere like 350 Russians killed. The thing is about war, usually one of the first victims is actually the truth, not actually people about the actual numbers, because both sides usually will bolster their numbers and try to like play down how many people they've lost. This happens all the time in the conflict in Syria, for example.
Yes, yes.
And this is something I wanted to bring up quickly. Talking about Syria, if you look at the Russian track record of bombing and attacks in Syria, you would see that there is almost a complete callous disregard for civilian casualties in Syria. Famously, the Russians actually, even while bragging about the missile systems, they actually just publicly released footage of them bombing a hospital with missiles with civilians in it that killed like 13 people. And so I wanted to ask you, do you expect to see any more care given to this conflict by the Russian military than they gave in the Syrian conflict when it comes to missile strikes and airstrikes?
I don't think. Well, okay, of course. The thing is, like, whenever you say, "Oh, Russia wouldn't do that," they usually manage to sort of exceed the expectations.
We already have
But
reports of civilian casualties, including children.
yes, I've read reports. I've seen pictures of them of like Russian rockets hitting a hospital. But that seems to be more for now. That seems to be more of an accident. The thing is, like, if I don't think Russia would go for go with these tactics here, because that would just make things all the worse for Putin's domestic position. Because hey, fraternal Ukrainian people. Oh look, we're bombing their hospitals. Okay, so that might be actually even more risky for Putin, in my opinion.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. You said in your video that you think Putin actually, I don't want to say stumbled, but he kind of overplayed his hand and then knew that if he pulled back at this point, that it would look like he was bluffing, and then in the future people wouldn't respect Russian threats of use of violence as much. And so, do you think Putin kind of overplayed his hand and was like, well, I didn't really want to do this, but I've now committed myself to this too much. I have to go through with it? Because you were pointing to many things that made you feel that this was hastily planned. Could you talk about that?
Oh yes, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Putin really fucked up with this, actually, because so basically, okay, where do I begin? So, um, I should begin somewhere. So basically, this is a whole chain of Putin just like misreading the situation and misunderstanding things, and then going ahead with the plan anyway. And that the first one was, of course, back during the protests with Viktor against Viktor Yanukovych. He expected the protests to just like die down on their own, or like for
Oh, one second. For chat, Viktor Yanukovych is a rat bastard. Sorry, you can continue.
Yes, yeah, he was the Ukrainian wannabe Putin, basically, until people chased him away in like 2014, early 2014. So the Putin's first assumption was that, oh, look, Yanukovych is just going to beat the protesters up or like shoot at them, which did happen, and the protesters will just go home and everything will be fine. This did not happen. The protests were much more massive than expected, and it actually overthrew the government. Oopsie. So then came the second plan. Okay, let's fuel protests around Ukraine, dissolve the Ukrainian state, because there's no.
Well,
Ukrainian...
I do want to say, because a lot of people try to say this is the West came in and overthrew the government. This was a people's movement. That's the first thing I want to say. There was police violence in response to the people's protest during the Euromaidan, which had to do with the fact that Yanukovych wanted to pull away from integration with the European Union and many economic opportunities that would come, as well as then it kind of expanded into issues of corruption and issues of kind of crony capitalism. And also afterwards there was a democratic election, so it wasn't like some big military coup and then like a dictatorship came in and the Nazis took over, which the Russians try to paint it as.
Exactly. The West didn't install any leaders, because of course the Western countries, some certain Western countries would have, if this was a different scenario. But what people fail to consider is Ukraine is a candidate to be part of the core world, so to speak, to be part of the EU, which is a core sort of power pole on the planet. So it's you cannot do the same the things to Ukraine that you can do to, I don't know, Burundi or something, right? Because and that's why sort of the terms, the IMF terms, and all these other sort of financial assistance and handouts Ukraine gets will be on sort of better terms, because you cannot treat a country like a colony when it's going to be part of the sort of empire, so to speak. And of course, the EU is by no means an empire, or NATO. This is just I'm just using an analogies here to better paint the picture. But it was absolutely out of the question for the West to give Ukraine the third world treatment, because it is going to be part of the European bloc, right? Which is a sort of first world. I'm using these antiquated terms, somewhat Cold War terms, but still, I think the point stands. So anyway, back to what we were discussing. So Putin kind of miscalculated with the protests, and then he miscalculated with the dissolving of the Ukrainian state, because oopsie, a Ukrainian national identity was formed from these protests. So and then he misunderestimated the Ukrainian army, which then made
Do you think some of that comes from, like, he was expecting 2014, which now he's actually receiving the 2020 Ukrainian military, which is much different than the 2014 Ukrainian military?
It was part of the equation, but like I think Putin, of course, like he's surrounded with analysts. He knows that that is not the same Ukrainian army. However, if you're a dictator, there's also a danger of yes man. So if you only hear because inside these oligarchies, these dictatorial oligarchies, you climb the ladder through usually through loyalty, for example. And if you say the things that the big poobah wants to hear, then that's one way to climb the ladder. And so it's a question how compromised Putin's advisors are at this point. So whether Putin was fed a bunch of bullshit, or maybe he himself just believed some idiotic things about Ukraine. No one knows, because it's a very opaque system. But the thing is, they did have to underestimate the Ukrainian army to some extent, or at least their ability to recoup from a missile strike shock, because as we discussed, they planned for a blitzkrieg, and this really didn't happen. In fact, the opposite seems to be happening now. And at this point, as you said, Putin did really maneuver himself into a corner. So first off, he postured invasion for months, right? And
Yes.
made threats and everything, and then for at that point to back off, well, would have been like, yeah, okay, so next time Russia makes a threat, it's like, yeah, you can take it that seriously. This happened already once, by the way. I think last year he also did the same thing, like started building up troops, but then pulled everything back in the end. And so if this would have happened for the second time, then for the third time it would have been like, yeah, okay, whatever. Nah, don't worry about it. He's gonna pull back anyway. So I would say at this point he had to do something, but it wasn't never mind at all what he's going to do. So at this point he could have just annexed the Donbass areas and then just be done with it. Say, yeah, okay, look, we annexed these areas, and then they're now part of Russia, and now our troops are pulling back because blah 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 blah. Whatever justification he orders RT to use afterwards. So he could have done that, but he chose the invasion path, obviously. So now whether this was because he's delusional or he was given some bad intel, I think it's a bit of both, actually. So there was a chance for him to back down. There was plenty of opportunity, and especially knowing that, like, inside Russia he can kind of bend reality to his will. He can just make shit up, basically. So there was an opportunity to quit, but he didn't, and now he's getting fucked, most likely.
I wanted to talk to you about something, because there have been a lot of people, you talked about like the posturing towards invasion. If you listen to certain commentators, it felt like an invasion was impossible. If you listen to certain notorious characters like a Hinkle, or maybe a person by the name of Maupin, or a person by the name of Infrared.
Who's Maupin? Oh yeah,
Caleb
Maupin.
Caleb
Yeah,
Maupin.
Putin's porcupine.
Yes. In fact, he even said today after the invasion, I can play footage of him just straight up. Actually, I will play footage of it because fuck him. Here's footage of him from a few days ago, saying that an invasion was never gonna happen.
And it is so unbelievably.
So I'm just gonna play it on stream. Okay, once again.
And it is so unbelievably stupid. Russia has made it abundantly clear since these allegations started that they have no intention of invading Ukraine.
And if you listen to this guy or Infrared, he said the same thing yesterday, even while the invasion was going on. And you've heard this side of stuff from even people, really big people like Hassan Abi, even though he has walked back, and I respect him for walking back these claims. Of course, you've got Press TV star and Gray Zone fanatic. I forget how to pronounce the name. Reina Khalik. I'm not a huge fan of her. What do you think of all these characters now having to face the reality of everything they've ever said about this conflict being absolute bullshit?
Sure. So after being subjected to their takes, I'm significantly more spiteful towards these people at this point. Like so far, I just kind of tend to avoid. I tended to avoid them. Like, yeah, I'm not touching them. Like, you know, I'm bigger than them. Who gives a shit? And at this point, like, they're malicious enough so that I can speak out. So. Yeah, I mean, Maupin is just like is like an NPC controlled by Russian satellites. Like, who gives a shit? Like, he doesn't. I don't think he has like ideas of his own. He just says what he has to say to get paid. So you know, Maupin is like it's whatever. You know, he just you know don't worry about him. As for others, like that the first guy you mentioned when you started that little shit list of yours, the Assad chemical attack guy. I don't know.
Jackson Hinkle, who actually, I don't know if you know this, took money, thousands of dollars from pro-Assad lobby groups. Actually, I didn't know if you knew that.
Who would have thought? Yeah. So like, I've only seen like Vosh's debate with him, and then like him talking about it a few times. He seems like a massive piece of shit. He just like an unpleasant person who watches too much porn and thinks that he has a micro penis while having a perfectly normal size. And like that's my read on the guy. But anyway, just like wait, I saw your debate with him, parts of it actually.
Yes, on Taiwan.
Yeah. Oh god, that was mind numbing. Like I mean, he's just like a dumb fuck. Once again, I don't think he has. He's also.
Wait, can I just say it's very interesting to hear people make arguments of like self determination about the Donbass separatist republics or whatever, but then you get to Taiwan and they'll just 180 like no sovereignty of China, complete 180 on the self determination stuff. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I think, based on what I've seen so far, I don't think that Hinkle dude has any thoughts of his own or like any positions of his own. He just does it like Maupin does it for the RT money, and he just does it for I think clout. Like that's my read on him. Also unpleasant, dumb fuck. Just like he's the kind of guy who if there are like 2 double seats free on the bus with like one person sitting on each, and then one of them is him, then you go to the other person's seat and it's like yeah okay. So anyway, or if there's a double seat and free and only one seat on it and he's sitting on the one side, you just stand on the way because whatever, it's better this way. Otherwise, the other people who talked about this, yeah, let's go through them. What's that dude, like the yelly guy who looks like the
Infrared.
GigaChat. Yeah, the microwave GigaChat, yes. So he's you also debated him, didn't you? Like
yes, I debated him on Taiwan as well. Yeah.
Yeah, like I have not seen a dude so insecure as him and being so aggressive about it. Like he's look, I really don't want to be mean to him because like I actually don't think Infrared is doing this on purpose. I think he's just it is just some kind of like deficiency that he has nothing to do with.
By the way, you saying this means he's gonna probably talk about you for the next few days.
Oh, sure. I mean, he'll cry about me. I don't give a shit. So, but like he just strikes me as a sort of it's kind of like a victim of ideology to some extent, but he's also a victim of his own insecurity and just like I mean, he's scared and confused, and it's like his stakes are usually like confused, screaming that MP4, and like that's the dude. That's the read I got from like watching. I think like yeah, most of my exposure to these people are through you and Vosh. So I just sometimes I watch these debates as I'm a fucking like a disaster tourist, just showing up to take pictures of devastation. And it's like, oof.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. The type of stuff we do is not for everybody. It can be quite difficult at times to talk to these types of characters. But let's probably get back actually to the topic at hand and away from irrelevant people whose ideology has no option of ever actually gaining power in the United States, and back to the actual conflict at hand. So
Good idea.
The next thing I wanted to ask you about is the potential for a refugee crisis. When we talk about like Syria, I believe they had a pre-war population of 20 million to maybe 25 million. I think it was around 20 million. Ukraine has a population of 44 million people, and there's been estimates made, if this war continues, millions of people fleeing to countries like Poland, which doesn't have an amazing reputation when it comes to refugees, as refugees fleeing from war. What do you think about this potential for crisis?
There's a potential for crisis. I don't think Poland would be a problem from this point of view, because Ukrainians aren't brown. That's the LDR version. So with Poland, like there was a huge agitation against, like, Muslim immigration and the like. But there's already like a huge number of, I think more than 1 million or maybe even 2 million Ukrainians living in Poland currently, just for work, and like this is before the conflict. Plus stuff like, there's lots of cultural similarities. Ukrainian and Polish are similar languages, and they're, and Ukraine itself has like a Polish history in its like western regions, which by the way is where my family is from. This is going back generations. Yeah, like they came from around Lviv, I believe, to the like East Hungary. So yeah, not too long ago either. 3-4 generations. So yeah. So so while the refugee crisis is a risk, I don't think it's unmanageable. Especially with Poland. But then again, I don't think there will be. I think most people will be IDPs, internally displaced persons.
Yes, I agree.
Because the west of Ukraine will most likely not get invaded at this point. Like if they're having this much trouble with the east, then there's no way in hell they're taking Lviv, the west of the country.
What do you think about the fact that it seems the Ukrainian military and the Ukrainian government is basically saying to the Ukrainian people, this is our moment of resistance? I've even heard reports of automatic weapons being handed out in the capital of Kiev, of anybody with a passport basically being able to sign up to fight. It seems like the government is basically saying to the Ukrainian people, this is your moment, and seeing whoever they can get. And of course, they've already called up the reservists.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And actually, I'm going to send you a link on Discord. Pictures, if you want to put them on stream. Of said volunteer sort of territorial defenses or Teroboron units gearing up. Like these are like volunteers, civilians who got some training from Donbass veterans mostly.
Let me read this quick. 10,000 guns issued to the volunteers of territorial defense only in Kiev this evening. They are under the Armed Forces Command. Presidential representative during TV broadcasts. Pravda reports photos of one of the many conscription points. Tell us about this.
Yes, so basically, this is what it is. This is Ukrainians be like, dude, okay, so the time has come that we all suspected will come for 8 years. This is Putin's end game, and it's now or never. Fuck Russians, fuck Putin, we're going in. And yeah, this is how many people think right now, which absolutely, hell yeah, let's go.
In fact, let me play actually some footage I have on hand. We're going to be watching Zelensky's speech later, but this is actually footage from the Ukrainian subreddit. A Ukrainian father saying goodbye to his family, who are boarding a train to flee for safety, while he stays behind to fight the Russian invaders. Just going to play this quickly on stream. I'll be right back, okay?
Не снимай, носи. Дарюш.
Sorry, I just played it. It's a very extremely sad video watching like a father embrace their child and cry as he goes off to fight and they go off to safety for the sovereignty of their nation.
Yes. Well, but this is what needs to happen here. By the way, for the record, that's not a train. That's a Ukrainian-made Bogdan A092.
Okay. You know, it's public transportation, and as an American, I'm unfamiliar. Okay.
Well, you're welcome. Anyway,
I appreciate the mini bus update. We're getting to the real issues on this stream.
Yes. So so basically right now it's most people, like not most people, but like a lot of people are like, yeah, okay, dude, look, this is it. If we either like rebuff the Russians now, or we're gonna just like be gulagged later on for being enemies of the state or something. People want to obviously keep their freedom because Russia is much more. I mean, it is a dictatorship. There are no real elections. There's no freedom of the press. Well, Ukraine does have those things, so people do realize what's at stake here, I would say. Plus, they just don't like their country being invaded by outside forces. Who would have thunk it? So yeah, this resistance is completely organic. That's the beauty of it. So people are just like showing up and be like, yeah, I wanna. Oh shit! Actually, wait. Let's see. It is from the Union news agency. This is not Ukraine actually, but Chinese Air Force fighters entered Taiwan's airspace while Navy ships entered territorial waters. Taiwan Defense Ministry warns of increased alert after air defense detects 9 Chinese fighters, according to Fox News.
That is terrible, of course, but I will also tell you, as somebody who's been following this issue forever, Chinese planes entering Taiwanese airspace, unless it's literally above Taiwan itself, is not really news. It's been sadly happening a lot recently.
That's not good.
Yeah, it's not good, but this is like sadly a regular occurrence. Yes.
I see. Okay. Thank you for assuaging my.
Yeah, it'd be like if you walked up to me and said, "Did you know there's homeless veterans?" And I was like, "Yes." It's not really a new It's sad. It's just not like a new information, so to speak.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, okay. For a moment, I was worried that like China took the initiative and it's like, yeah, okay, if they did it, we're gonna do it. But then again, Taiwan is under like U.S. military guarantees, so I don't think they'll do it.
The vagueness of it, of course, being the special sauce there. But I wanted to ask you about something else, and this has to do with SWIFT and Biden's response. What do you think about the idea of removing Russia from SWIFT? And if you could explain what that is, I would appreciate it for chat. And what do you think of Biden's response so far?
Sure. So SWIFT is essentially the international sort of it's the magic money internet.
Amen.
Yeah. So that's, as far as we're concerned. That's where most of the pretty much the vast majority of global transactions take place. If you get basically if you get disconnected from that, it's kind of like someone blocking your bank account and you not being able to send or receive money to your bank account, which you use daily. So that's kind of bad. The problem with that is that since the economy is global now, that will cause sort of ripple effects and economic damage to countries that impose the disconnection from SWIFT. So this is why countries like Germany are not too keen about it. I think a few European countries vetoed the SWIFT disconnection for now. This is of course Hungary, because Hungary is at this point a collaborant nation. Of course, Germany, due to economic ties.
Do you just need one country to veto? Is that all you need?
No, well, I don't. Well, actually, I don't think there's a veto here. I'm not sure about the particulars. I do believe like it might just be like a lobbying inside Europe about this. But anyway, there's sufficient opposition. There's sufficient political opposition inside Europe currently to keep the SWIFT disconnection off the table. However, what Biden is doing with Russian banks is he's basically doing the SWIFT disconnection without the SWIFT disconnection.
Yes.
Or measures that are
Biden actually said this to a reporter who asked this exact question, and this was his exact response. We're going to be watching that speech later, but I wanted to bring up something quick. According to Joint Forces Command, in the Kharkov area, the Ukrainian army used javelins and neutralized a column of 15 T-72 tanks, according to the general staff. Now,
yeah.
the Americans have been actually sending a lot of Javelin missiles to the Ukrainian military, and this is particularly because we knew that Russian armor would be a major obstacle for Ukraine in a potential invasion, and it seems like these Javelins are being put to good use, and this is the positive effect of American aid in this situation.
Absolutely. So javelins, what Ukraine received, javelins, Groms, Stingers, and NLAWs, and all that. These are what we call force multipliers. So they are not going to win a war for you, but they can make sure that you're able to. So as I've said I think either in a video or in a community post, it's nice to have an advanced tank and have the crew in it and shoot at the enemy. But like if one dude can take it out with one rocket, then it's kind of a skewed cost benefit there. And of course, the thing about javelins is that their javelins missiles are said to be like one javelin missile is said to be more expensive than the hardware it's designed to take out, i.e. Soviet armor. But in this case, like just America is paying for it, so whatever. The Ukrainians are not bound by this.
Mm-hmm.
And and I've read reports of Ukrainians using NLAWs as well. They took out 3 tanks when Russians tried to cross the Donbass line of demarcation, which is pretty amazing actually. Like they could not break through the line yet, the Russians in the east. Like I would have assumed that was like the first thing to go. And then we would see urban combat, but no, it's actually the line is holding for now, and everyone who tried crossing it got BTF'd pretty hard, including with NLAWs. I don't know about Javelin use. I've not heard about Javelin use in the east, or at least I'm sure it's happening, but I've not seen confirmation. But yeah, in the northeast area around Sumy, like they got BTF'd hard. So it looks like these like little some Russian tanks have these sort of haphazard improvised little grates above their turrets, which are experimental, like non-standard, just like cobbled together from whatever scrap they had, protection against javelins. So the idea that I don't know if you can find pictures for that, but the idea is that wait, I can actually link you an article. The idea is that you put that little grate above the tank, and so the javelin missile will be ineffectual. However, I got the article here. However, I've read that actually, if you make the javelin missile explode, so you can put this on stream if you want to.
Okay.
If the javelin missile explodes slightly above the turret instead of right into the turret, that might actually make it more destructive. Because of the particulars of how the javelin missile is designed. So in the javelin. So the part that makes it go boom is in the back.
Yes.
So even if the missile's front penetrates through something, then by the time the missile's front, or like by the time the ordnance actually reaches the turret, then that's when the back part detonates, and then it doesn't matter either way because the tank will be toast.
I wanna bring up one crawl. I want to thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. I'm sorry if I'm not thanking everybody for the subs and stuff. I'm just concentrating on the conversation. I wanted to bring up something different, and that is Belarus and how they come into the situation. While analysts did talk about the idea of the Russians crossing the Belarusian border, many analysts didn't actually think they would go through with it, but they did. Do you think, now that they've done that, we already know that they've done that, do you think the Belarusian military will actually get involved in any military operations?
I've heard they already are actually. So in the morning, I've read reports of Belarusian military, or at the very least Belarusian aviation involved in maneuvers and actual attacks. If nothing else, then Belarus is of course used as a staging ground, and at this point, Belarus should, like from a military strategic perspective, Belarus should be treated as if it was Russia. Like it's just another region of Russia. Period. Lukashenko is the Agroführer clown there to pretend that he's the leader. Otherwise, it's like whatever. It's Putin who calls the shots. It's obvious.
Got you. Here's a question I'm particularly interested in. How do you think Putin is going to sell this moving forward, and particularly media outlets like Russia Today since generally it seems that the entirety of the world's media outlets and just representatives see this for what it is. Do you think that they're like how are they going to keep up the act on this?
Oh, simple. Just they laid the groundwork for this long ago. So basically, just we're fighting
Actually,
Nazis.
as of 8 hours ago, 4 ballistic missiles were launched from the territory of the Republic of Belarus. So you're not really wrong, since they are launching direct attacks from it.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, at this point, that's just like a Russian sort of military base, the whole Belarus. So like, for as far as we're concerned, also like at this point, yeah. But wait, can you repeat the question again? Because I'm getting a bit lost in my thoughts over here.
How do you think that Russia today and Putin and all these types of basically the media outlets and the people who are interested in selling this to the Russian people as a totally legitimate war, totally not us invading, totally they were going to invade us, man, the Ukrainians are going to invade Russia any day now. How do you think they're going to sell this moving forward?
Oh, I think it's very easy. I can make up some reasoning right now. So we so just pretend as if I'm some kind of RT correspondent. So we in Russia were very concerned about this like Nazi uprising inside Ukraine, and so the Donbass was under the threat of genocide and NATO invasion. So we went in, and our heroic troops are fighting the Nazis, but the Westerners provided them just like some potent support because they themselves are collaborating with the Ukrainian Nazis, and therefore we are suffering heavy losses, but our heroic troops are holding the line. Yada yada yada. Like whatever it takes, however they have to do it. These are just like talking points, repeated by dumb fucks like Caleb Maupin on air for like a for an increasingly small audience internationally, because very importantly, Caleb Maupin is calibrated. He's programmed in a way to appeal to try and appeal to international audiences. Now, Russian domestic messaging for domestic audiences is very, very different. Can be rather very different. So, but either way, the thing about propaganda is that if you hear something consistently enough, even if it's complete bullshit, eventually some people will start believing it. So, and that's the bottom line on that.
I wanted to ask you, and anything you want to particularly talk about, just speak up and we can talk about it. But of course, I have a million questions since a million things have happened since tomorrow. As of 5 hours ago, Russian troops have captured the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. And that the station's staff is reportedly, according to at least the live map, is being held hostage, or at least being held there.
Isn't it a war crime?
Not if you're Russian.
Yeah.
But I know for sure that second part I would need to do a double check on. I will confirm that, or if somebody else could help me confirm that, I'd appreciate it. But I do know that the Chernobyl nuclear power plant has been captured, and there was a fighting in the Chernobyl, in the area around Chernobyl. What do you make of that? Because I guess for a lot of people, that is probably one of the most notable places for most people internationally when they talk about Ukraine and Belarus in this area.
Oh, yes. I mean, I guess, yeah, we all watched the series. So, yeah, but I don't fully understand the strategic significance of Chernobyl itself, because I mean, it's an irradiated wasteland essentially with some radioactive dump containers, and some people here and there. So I have not yet read about, I have not yet been made aware of the strategic importance of Chernobyl. It might have some symbolic importance perhaps, but even so,
I would say the main strategic importance of Chernobyl is that it's on the path to Kiev, right?
Yeah, sure, but that's like the main strategic object in that area. I would say would be the Hostomel airport, right, which Ukrainians have now taken back. So it seems to me, even though it's on the way, it's so, well, okay, it makes sense that they want to push down, but if I want to push down, I suppose for me the first area to take would not be this like radioactive area, 1/5 of the way. There's space next to the zone,
I also do want to bring up the fact that military clashes near Chernobyl are dangerous for I feel like I don't even need to mention it, but for obvious reason when it comes to radioactive waste storage in the idea of an artillery shell hitting some of that, or something getting dug up through combat. And obviously fighting near any type of nuclear power plant or anywhere where there's nuclear waste storage is extremely dangerous, for obvious reasons. And it is something to keep a close eye on moving forward.
So I mean, I can actually see the point. Like, I can see the argument that the reason why they took it was so that they can set up positions there, and so the Ukrainians will not retaliate, fearing that if they do, they might hit the reactor. But then it's a huge area, though. So in order for that to happen, in order for the to have the Ukrainians scared of retaliation, for fear of hitting anything, anything radioactive, they would need to put their stuff like right next to the reactor or something. So that's I don't know. We'll have to see. I guess I don't know enough about the situation as of now, and I would need to see more information. So for now, it looks to me as if it's just symbolic mostly.
Got you. I wanted to ask you about the comparisons between the Ukrainian and Russian Air Force. I think one of the main advantages Russia has is the difference in Air Force capabilities, since the Ukrainians just don't have the same size Air Force or as updated equipment. How do you think that's going to factor in to how this conflict evolves?
I mean, it already has factored in. So the Gostomel airport was first taken by just like a helicopter assault with like 30 something, or like at least 24 helicopters. I think, what was it, like 3 of them got shot down in the process, but still, most of them survived. But then of course the Ukrainians took back the positions. But air superiority is of course a big problem, and the Ukrainian army is lacking both in air support, hardware, and in anti-air. So that's a big risk that they have. However, so far the Russian Air Force has not managed to make a dent, really, in the Ukrainians' defenses. Because if they could,
Really?
then I suppose, of course, in the sense that they haven't helped Russians really make advances. Because if the Russian air superiority was so overwhelming that they could just like carpet bomb Ukrainian positions, then Kharkiv would already be taken, basically, or the demarcation line would already be crossed. So contrary to Russian reports, the Ukrainian air defenses are not destroyed completely. They have been severely damaged, but I would intuit that right now whatever they have left are focused to protect the sort of major zones of the major areas of defense, because like once again, like if the air superiority at this point was so overwhelming, the Russians would have used it already and just like ended the Ukrainian defenders with it.
I guess I have seen a lot of like missile strikes. I've seen a lot of air strikes. I've seen Russian Su-25s and other type of Russian aircraft, like helicopters, involved in offensive operations. I mean, to me, it feels like they're basically trying to soften up the targets before moving in militarily. I mean, you could see something similar to Operation Peace Spring in Syria when the Turkish military marched south. I mean, I would point towards that's most likely what they're doing. That's historically how these type of operations go. I mean, I would say that it looked like they tried to decapitate the head of the snake, but I would assume that's Plan B, is to soften up the positions, then move in.
Yeah, but I've not seen it. I have seen it happen. The thing is, though, I have not seen it happen en masse. Is my point. So the Russian air forces do have an overwhelming advantage, obviously. However, their advantage seems to be not such as to provide just a constant hammering of Ukrainians nonstop. From morning till evening, and then Russian tanks roll through the charred remains of the defense lines 2 hours later. This doesn't seem to be the case.
I will also say that there are still Russian military on the border with Ukraine that have yet to enter the country, so we're not even necessarily seeing the full force of the Russian military at this point in time. At least the Russian military they have ready to attack the country.
That's true, yes. However, there are also logistical limits to their deployment. So the thing is, this is Russia's largest military. This is Russia's largest military logistical deployment since 1945, and they didn't really have an experience with this. And actually, the initial attack was a bit haphazard. So, according to reports I've read, it was like rather unorganized, not well coordinated. So, I can see how just. So I would intuit that there is a deployment limit that the Russian sort of military administration can manage at the same time. Because once again, like if they could do it at once, I believe they would have already done it. Because Putin wants a blitzkrieg, and so to win a blitzkrieg, I mean, it makes sense to just throw everything at them, whatever you have, as hard as you can, and then boom, there you have it. Unless there is some other variable that I'm not aware of, that's what I would intuit. That it's simply like they don't have the capacity to deploy as much at the same time. Because then, of course, if you deploy everything at the same time, you have other problems such as what if your vehicles just get clogged up somewhere and then they become like sitting ducks for javelin strikes or whatever, or artillery. It's nice to have a lot of tanks, but if there's like one road through the countryside, then you can that's where you can start having problems. Then your size will actually play against you.
I do want to play something quick on stream. This is footage of a Russian Su-25 being shot down once coming in from Belarus. The pilot does eject here. I'm going to play this quickly on stream. It's just a very short clip, but you can see the plane coming down. Okay. So, is there anything you wanted to bring? I've been asking you a ton of questions. Is there anything you wanted to specifically bring up?
Well, I think we covered so far everything that I wanted to talk about. For the matter, by the way, Su-25s are, they're kind of like the weaker planes. Some people would call them pieces of shit, but they still do their job. That being said, though,
yeah, they're doing their job of being shot down. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, but I'm actually fairly convinced there are types of Russian planes that have killed more pilots in peacetime than in wartime. Anyway, that's Soviet engineering. But the fact that planes are still being downed, I would say, is proof that they cannot just go in balls to the wall, because then that.
Yeah, what do you think about Ukrainian anti-air weaponry? Because since they don't have the military capacity in the air to necessarily repel the Russian military, they've had to make up for that with anti-air. What do you think of Ukrainian anti-air capabilities?
Well, they have some, of course. That's one of the big gaps within the Ukrainian military. That has been one of the big gaps that it's severely lacking. They would need like twice, 3 times as much. Otherwise, what they have though on the ground, portable like Stingers and the like, that's actually a big deal. So we're not talking about necessarily like these big SAM tracked vehicles, rather just like a dude with a rocket launcher, because that alone is enough to negate helicopter threats and to force jets to higher altitudes for fear of being fired upon. Because Stingers have, of course, a finite range; they cannot shoot up all the way. But this forces jets to higher altitudes, which decreases their effectiveness by a lot. There's lots of complicated factors playing here. There's, of course, the traditional like mechanized air defense as well within Ukraine. Many of it was destroyed during the initial and subsequent raids, but otherwise there's enough of them still in operation to pose a threat. So once again, if Russia had the ability to just like steamroll Ukraine with everything they got, they would have done it already.
I mean, I would say I agree with you generally, but I don't think we've seen like the worst of the invasion, so to speak. I still think Russia has more up its sleeve. For example, Russia has assembled troops, armor, and artillery, and now more than 50 heavy equipment transporters in a training area near Brest, near the Polish border, of course, in Belarus. And they don't only have troops near the border area of Belarus, but of course across other parts near the border with Ukraine. And I'm waiting to see if those things are going to maneuver their way into Ukraine. But I would say we've definitely seen the worst of it in the south. That's where we've seen the most consistent Russian advances. near
Oh,
Crimea.
Yes. We'll see what comes on the south. The thing is, though, um, so far the Ukrainians seem to have mounted a pretty good defense against what the Russians have. And now that the territorial defense and everything else mobilizes, I think I don't think Russians throwing more equipment at the problem will necessarily solve it. Of course, it will help the Russians, obviously. But now that like general mobilization was enacted, actually, it's pretty recent news. Zelensky signed a decree on general mobilization. Also, that the territorial defenses are now being set up. So now we go from the next wave of Russian attackers, if they do break through the defense lines, then they go from a more traditional trench warfare, urban defense warfare, to a more sort of insurgency guerrilla style thing, where it's like, okay, so which window is the rocket gonna come from? Oh, that one. Oops, we're dead. So that actually and against that you cannot really airstrike either. So in some sense, Russia still has tricks up its sleeve. In some other sense, the Russian soldiers on the ground have not seen the worst of it yet. So for soldiers, the worst of it would be just like you streaming into a city and then you meeting with a possibly very hostile population with troops here and there, mines, traps, harassment attacks, and then your force being melted away. As you advance forward. Cities can really think about cities, especially big cities like Kiev, Kharkiv, Odessa. They can swallow a lot of troops, and they can become I do think that if Russia actually does keep this up, then those cities will be like the deciding sort of end game theaters, and not in a good way for Russians. Because the equipment Ukraine has right now, the portable launchers, etc., those are perfect for urban warfare.
I wanted to ask you about something else that I heard about. I actually saw. Did you see the text to Ukrainian soldiers?
Nope.
So the Russian military, you're familiar with war leaflets, when planes used to drop leaflets to say, abandon your post, give up, those types of things. They're doing that, but they're doing it in a different way. They're actually texting Ukrainian soldiers directly, telling them to abandon their posts, that the Russians are already here, give up, etc. It's actually extremely interesting example of Russian psychological warfare.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's not really working, right?
Yeah, no, it isn't. It's kind of a moot point.
Yeah. So nice try, but I think you should be sending messages to your troops to try to like moralize.
Stay on your post, please. Yeah.
Yeah. Please don't run. Yeah. So anyway, so
this is a really good conversation. Actually, this is a really good conversation from start to finish.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate you coming on to talk about this. If there's anything else you wanted to say before you left, or any points you wanted to hit on, now would be the time.
All right. Yeah. So glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Fuck Putin. I hope he chokes on his own dick. So far, so good for Ukraine. This has been. I was expecting more catastrophic results than today's. So hope remains. Some hopium fuel for everyone. And yeah, if the longer this conflict drags out, the better chances Ukraine has at surviving this, and the worse things get for Russia. So,
I would say the best piece of news so far is the capturing of the airfield near Kiev, which I think signals a pretty bad defeat for the Russians, definitely, since these were like the elite of the Russian armed forces, of their special operation forces. Huge hit. I mean, they were basically saying like it's like this would be like almost like American Green Berets landing and getting clapped.
Yeah, huge. Listen. This is huge. We did like the best. Did
you hear Trump's statement on all of this? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. But like,
on how none of this would have happened if the election wasn't rigged, and how Trump and how Putin's plan is so genius.
Yeah, if Trump won the election, we would be in nuclear war right now. So thank fuck.
I appreciate you coming on, Adam. If you want to shout yourself out quick.
Thank you for having me on. Well, you can find me on YouTube as Adamsomething. I'm pretty much on YouTube only. So there's that. Feel free to check out my Discord if you want to. And I wish all of you a good streaming experience. I don't know what people say in these situations.
Oh,
Anyway.
actually, somebody. I wanted to bring in somebody who's from the Jerusalem, who's a contributor to Jerusalem Post, and wanted to ask you a few questions. Is that okay? Or do you need to go?
Sure.
Okay.
No. I'm fine.
1 second. I also wanted to say that there were other people that I was working to get on, and I mean this literally. They have joined the Ukrainian armed forces and are unavailable at this point in time. So I cannot.
I
get
wonder
them.
why.
Yeah, I think something might have happened. Yeah, we're bringing in Stoic Viper. Hey, how's it going, Stoic? Stoic? My South African Australian buddy? You're muted.
So far, he's a stoic listener.
Very much. Hey,
hello.
Viper.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Can you hear me?
We
Okay,
can hear
cool.
you.
Yep. Hello, Adam, by the way. I just wanted to...
Hi.
Yeah. I just want to... by the way, I hear a reverb or something like that in the background.
From me or from Adam? You might have my stream on, I think.
Oh shit! Sorry. I'm an idiot. I'm an absolute idiot. Sorry about that.
I know.
Oh, shut up. Yeah. Hello, Adam. I just wanted to say that your video on Ukraine, because I actually watched it, I think 2 days ago. Your update videos on Ukraine and actually the sort of a history building up to the current crisis have been actually one of the best analysis that I've seen on the crisis. May I just say in its history? So I must commend you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's very good, well researched. I just wanted to ask you that what do you think about the Ukrainian military's, I guess, development since its inception back in like 2014? What do you think have been the main advances when it comes to their military capabilities, and how do you think that would serve them now in this conflict?
Well, I would say unit cohesion, and just like cohesion in general, a common purpose. Because before it was just like, yeah, whatever. I guess we're getting paid to walk around with guns in our hands, and now it's like, oh yeah, we're actually protecting our home. Actual ideological cohesion, we could say, huge factor. Also, just better equipment in general, so better body armor, some sort of gadgets from foreign donors and foreign supporters, and of course, sort of next generation stuff like javelins and whatnot. And of course, the domestic Ukrainian industry has also pumped out some really interesting hardware which they are now using, and a bunch of old Soviet hardware were like retrofitted to be much more useful than the original stock variant. There has been lots of improvement. That being said, we're up against the Russian army, which is kind of a different ballpark,
Definitely.
but not by that much. Not by that much, actually. Especially in defense, and especially if you are your morale is high and the enemy's is low. So there's actually Ukraine can actually make a difference here, and they are making one.
Yeah, I've definitely been seeing, especially Kharkiv. I think I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, basically. But there's been
Kharkiv is the Ukrainian, but Kharkiv also works.
I apologize as an Anglo speaker. Yeah, but I've seen the most amount of, I guess you could say, pushback over there. I've actually seen the utilization of the I think it's a Barkatir drones, especially provided by Turkey, being utilized in that area.
There have been videos floating around where I think it was even posted by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. That was actually that video where there's troops walking around between these like flat buildings. That's from Syria 2020.
Yeah,
but they did use Bayraktar drones. Well, obviously they have them. So the drones are actually a big deal. However, not necessarily against the Russian army, because drones were great against insurgents and whatnot. But here, the Russian army has, of course, air defenses, air superiority, etc. So drone use can only be useful in like some limited contexts, which I'm sure they got the most out of them.
Yeah, because I think the Russians have like book surface-to-air missile systems and those kind of like much more equipped air systems, essentially, to really try and deny the Ukrainians any air superiority on the ground. So it's I'm absolutely, because I've been watching the developments as they've been going on for I think everyone has, to be honest. The next sort of question that I have is that from a diplomatic standpoint, because I was actually quite surprised that Putin launched this operation, especially as extensive as it is, because I always thought it would be like, you could say, a minimal incursion, like something, to extend maybe the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts and, sort of like consolidate territory over there. But what do you think this really means now that Russia really wants to essentially take at least what we see for now from their operations, take the country? What do you think that actually means then from a geostrategic standpoint, I guess?
Well, I would say full-on diplomatic and economic isolation at this point. So I think Putin really overstepped the line here, which he really shouldn't have, which is kind of doing sort of old world imperialism in the 21st century Europe of all places. So, just you rolling in and fucking like with the tanks and start shooting shit up. This might have worked in the 20th century, mostly in the third world. I mean, it was bad enough when it happened in Hungary 1956 or in Czechoslovakia 1968, but to do it now against Ukraine like this, it's like, nah. So this will make Russia sort of a toxic object in many people's eyes. So it's like, yep, don't touch it. I'm not fucking touching it. Economic sanctions should reflect this, and they are reflecting it. Yeah. So I think Putin went really way over the line here.
Yeah, and I honestly, from my perspective, I thought that at least, maybe taking some territory could be used like in a strong arm tactic for maybe a potential future like agreement on Moscow's term to sort of threaten the rest of Ukrainian territory. I thought he would maybe do something akin to that, but this land grab, do you think that it was planned initially? Because I think that by your video suggestion, when I was watching it, you almost kind of suggest that he kind of stumbled into this really, rather than actually had this as his like first major plan, you could say.
Yes. I mean, it was just like bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, misreading the situation, etc. And whoop-de-doo, now we kind of have to do it because we have everything ready. And just like, I think this happened mostly out of just like inertia from Putin's part. And now he's paying the price, basically. So yeah. This was not the original plan. One thing that indicates this is just how haphazard and how just like lame the false flags were, when they came out. It's like, okay, so like a car was blown up with nobody in it in an empty parking lot, and later the license plate turned out to be fake, and then the Ukrainians assaulted Russian territory and blew up a border post, which turned out to be this shack in the weeds. And then, it's like, okay, whatever. So this was really haphazardly planned. And actually, I've read reports that like the Putin's declaration of war speech was actually recorded on the 22nd of February or so.
It was due to two reasons. Number one, he was wearing the same tie,
the same clothes.
Number two, he also, the metadata shows it was recorded not on the day of when it was put out there.
Yeah.
So but there's something that's been also found with a lot of the false flag attacks is that the metadata just does not line up.
Yeah. But like what can you do? Fascist regimes are pretty incompetent in general, and they'll keep fucking up and doing ridiculous things until they actually succeed. So that's the danger right there. But I don't think this is the situation now. I think at this point, like this is such an overreach from Putin that I don't think it'll be difficult, if at all possible, to climb out of this. And all we need to do for this to turn against Putin is for the Ukrainians to hold out for just like a couple more days or weeks.
I actually wanted to bring something else up. The Ukraine has severed diplomatic relations with Russia and is calling on other nations to do so. I actually saw a few people criticizing this on Twitter, saying it wasn't a smart move to end the conflict. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, at this point, okay, first off, I mean, people of Twitter, who gives a shit? But second point, the other half of this is like, okay, the West has been fucking bending over backwards to talk to Putin. Like diplomacy. We have to have diplomacy. We have to keep Putin talking. Keep him talking. We have to talk to him. We have to negotiate. And it's like, we've been doing this for fucking months now, and then Putin invades anyway. So doesn't that mean, in like sane people's land, that the diplomacy is at this point kind of off the table, and then Putin will just say one thing to you and then do whatever the fuck anyway, because Putin and everyone around him, Dmitry Peskov, etc., all those dumb fucks, kept saying over and over and over and over again that Russia will not invade Ukraine. And then, whoops, they did. Well, sorry. So at this point, why even fucking bother with diplomacy? Russia is not to be talked to. Like, if you make any diplomatic concessions to Russia, they'll just perceive it as weakness and just go whatever the fuck they were going to do anyway. And period. So if you think there's a diplomatic solution to this problem, there was. But Russia ignored it for months and then didn't take it in the end and invaded. So, if you want to, I guess you can keep up diplomacy with Russia, but the communiques and the papers that'll produce, they won't even be worth to wipe your ass with them. So whatever.
I did want to bring. Sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to bring up a report. Somebody linked in chat. It's from the Independent. First was reported by Bloomberg. And the title of it is that Kiev could fall to Russians within hours as Ukraine air defense is eliminated. Warning from senior Western intelligence official comes as Kremlin says 83 Ukraine military sites destroyed. The Ukrainian capital Kiev could fall to Russian within hours, a senior Western intelligence official said. The warning, first reported by Bloomberg, comes after Moscow targeted air bases and other military infrastructure across Ukraine on Thursday, following President Vladimir Putin to invade his neighbor. Russian troops poured across the border. They have so far destroyed 83 of Ukraine's above-ground military facilities since the invasion began, according to a Russian Defense Ministry spokesperson. What do you think about this claim from it? It's an unnamed military Western intelligence. It doesn't say who this person is, which kind of like makes me skeptical of it. But what do you make of this?
Yeah, okay. So so first off, destroyed. What does that mean, right? So when the whole rocket strike business began in the morning, Russia said that like they destroyed all the pretty much most of the military installations and airports and whatever. Now, destroying usually meant that like a rocket hit here and there. Sometimes it was like a severe hit, but sometimes it's just like just like went in somewhere, rocket, whatever. So destroyed means sustained a hit. So I would take it with a grain of salt. That being said, like even if the air defenses are completely eliminated, etc., like Russians still have to just go into the city and take it, right? So I don't think it's so obvious. Of course, I think there's a grave threat, but I don't think it's so obvious as to we just like destroyed all the air defenses and now Ukraine is ours because we bombed them. Like they've been bombing them until this point.
Yeah, true. It's just weird for somebody. I think the within hours is such a bold statement. Definitely since the claim was made 2 hours ago. But I guess for me, it's like it's hard to make that claim when they just recaptured the airport. Guns are being handed out. They're ordering full mobilization. I think like if maybe they could make the claim within days or something, or they could throw something out there, but within hours it's just a bold claim, and it's an unnamed official. It could surface from anywhere. Who knows? It just grabbed my attention because it was from Bloomberg and then reported by the Independent. So it's not like unreputable news site stuff.
Yeah, during the Chechen wars, a few thousand Chechen insurgents held a city of 200,000 for weeks against the Russian army, and Kiev is like a 3.5 million city. So like what are we talking about?
Yeah, the idea that they just roll up their tanks and they take it, like it's pretty ridiculous.
It seems highly unlikely unless there is some like ridiculous advantage that we don't know of, which I don't think it exists. If it
maybe the plan is they took Chernobyl, they're gonna drop the soldiers in Chernobyl, they're gonna become super soldiers, then they're gonna march on Kiev.
An army of Hulks come out.
Exactly. Well, now we're cooking.
Yeah. So unless I think the rule of thumb at this point should be that if Russia had really some like tide turning super big brain backwards forward chess strategy or some miracle military technology, they would have used it already, I think.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to add that Russia is notorious, as we know, for disinformation. And when Russia makes claims, for example, when it comes to the killing of Baghdadi, they claimed the killing of Baghdadi about 3 or 4 times before he was actually killed. So just keep that in mind. You've got to be very skeptical of any claims being made by any Russian official about, how great their military campaign is going.
That is true. I guess for me, it's just the Western official, which makes me think somebody who said this is unsympathetic. I mean, is sympathetic to the Ukrainian cause. Which, if it was like a Russian official, then I wouldn't care. I just whoever it is, who knows? It could just be clickbait. We have no clue.
And the fact that it's unnamed, I think. Look, if you have any information which that oh fuck, Kiev is going to fall within hours. Like, you usually put your name next to it if you really are certain, because then you're gonna be the guy who called it, right? So.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah, and historically these types of claims have come and gone during these types of conflicts in an instant, because this news travels so fast, and these news companies are very eager to get that snappy headline out there. I've actually heard from chat that was actually the title of David Pacman's stream, Kiev to fall within hours. Can somebody double check that for me just to make sure?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just 30 minutes ago, according to live UA map, Ukrainians retook the bridge at Kherson in the south and the bridgehead on the left bank. So
really,
yep.
Can you link that to me?
Let's see.
The thing is with this live map thing is I use this live map tech during Syrian civil war to follow it day by day, and
The updates a bit slow.
its updates have been so slow today and the site has been having huge problems because of the higher
It's
amount of
being attacked by
requests.
sub operations.
Do you think it's being attacked? I think it's just the
Yeah,
amount of
I think
people.
it's-
I think it's the amount of people using it, because obviously the whole world is watching Ukraine, and so everybody goes and looks at the live map technology, right?
Yeah, I get that as well. But for example, to access, at least from me, I had to use my VPN service and that. Usually I could have accessed it just normally.
Yeah, somebody
essentially.
just checked it for me. Yeah, that is the stream title. Seems
Yeah,
a
there we
little
go.
hyperbolic from Pacman.
I mean, whatever gets you views, I guess.
Whatever gets you views.
Yeah, so there's Russian DDoS apparently that's been attacking the website.
Who knows? I tend to think it's probably just higher amount of requests.
Well, it could be multiple things as well. But I just want to ask Adam just I think one last question, and this is in regards to going forward from this, because assumedly the Europeans and the Americans, they've shown a united response here. Of course, they've been attacking Russia economically speaking, and they've been providing assistance to the Ukrainian military. Now, suppose, and I hope this never doesn't happen, but suppose that actually Ukraine does get annexed at least, the whole of it gets annexed. Do you think that this would spell potential considerations for places like previously mentioned, like Georgia, for example, or any other of those areas? Do you think that potentially Russia could do any action in, say, for instance, those areas like Georgia, or any of I should say, or Finland or something like that? What do you think?
Oh, Georgia, definitely. I think Finland. I don't think so. I think at that point, if Russia annexed Ukraine, then Finland would join NATO.
I hope so.
That's what I would assume. But yeah, Putin's. The thing is, a lot of this is decided inside Putin's head. Not all of it, but a good deal of it. And the inside of Putin's head is increasingly a more and more unstable place as time goes on. So we don't know. We don't know what the man with the brain is planning. At any rate, of course, if Russia does annex Ukraine fully, that would, I believe, I'm not even sure they even want to do that, because that would just bankrupt them. It's a huge, it's Europe's second biggest country after them, right? So plus there would be insurgency, which as history taught us, Afghanistan, Iraq, I mean, that can even fuck with the U.S. military, and here we're talking about the Russian military. So and the Ukrainians are supported with top-notch equipment. So I don't think it's feasible.
It seems like the Russians took the bridge an hour ago, and then the Ukrainians just recaptured it 30 minutes ago. So the Russians held the bridge for 6 hours.
Oh, good. That's okay. I'm glad they retook it. Actually, the point is that progress is being made, and it's not a steamroll. That's the most important. That's what I was the most worried about. Is that it's just going to be a steamroll? It's going to be reported. Russians taking this, that, the other. But the fact that there's back and forth, at least for now, is good news.
Yeah, it is actually, and it's good because this is actually the area of the country where we're seeing the most trouble for the Ukrainians, which is in the south. That's where we're seeing the most territory actually captured at the moment. So for them to actually be recapturing stuff, I mean, for how long we have no clue, but that's good. Definitely, since you were talking about how they want. This is specifically the city that you were talking about. They would want to capture on the way to Odessa. And
they have to.
Yeah, they would have to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a very important position. Like if you don't hold that city, you cannot support your troops from Crimea.
I hate to cut this conversation short, but the White House is now giving a briefing on the situation, and I think I need to watch it. Adam, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, buddy.
Of course, thank you very much for having me, and until next time, I guess, depending on what Putin is up to.
Awesome. You have a good
Nice
one,
to
okay?
meet you, Adam.
Nice to meet
Good
you.
one, Adam.
Nice to meet you too. Bye bye.